My name is Nora Bennett. I am 23 years old, and right now I am standing beneath a row of red maple trees outside Rose Hill Inn, the mountain estate where I spent most of my childhood. I am wearing an ivory white suit that costs more than the car I used to sleep in. In my right hand is a dark brown leather briefcase. Inside that briefcase are three things: the deed to this property, a notice terminating my mother's right to operate it, and a 21-day order requiring every person inside to leave. Through the iron gate, I can see the wedding lights glowing across the garden. White roses are wrapped around the archway. A string quartet is playing near the fountain. Waiters in black uniforms are carrying champagne to guests who still believe my mother owns this place. My stepsister, Sienna, is standing under a canopy of imported flowers in a custom wedding gown, smiling into a camera and telling her followers that Rose Hill Inn has always been her family's legacy. She is wrong. This place was never hers. It was never Victor's. It was never my mother's. It became mine at 8:17 this morning, the moment the county clerk finished recording the transfer my grandmother had written into law years before anyone in that garden thought I was worth protecting. I check my watch. In less than 10 minutes, my attorney, Helena Ward, will walk through that gate with two civil officers. Before the wedding cake is cut, before Sienna gets her perfect golden hour kiss for social media, my mother will learn that the daughter she threw out on Christmas Eve has come back as the owner of the ground beneath her feet. But before we get there, please take a second to like this video and subscribe if you believe loyalty should be earned, not demanded by blood. And if you have ever been treated like the disposable one in your own family, comment where you are watching from. I read those comments because I know exactly what it feels like to be locked outside a door that should have opened for you. To understand why I am standing here, calm enough to hear my own heartbeat over the music, we have to go back nearly 4 years, to the night my mother decided I no longer belonged at Rose Hill Inn. It was Christmas Eve, 2020. I was 19, a second-year student at Appalachian State University, and I had just finished the hardest semester of my life. I remember driving through the snow from Boone to Asheville in my old blue Honda with one broken heater vent and a trunk full of laundry. The roads were slick, my hands were stiff on the wheel, and all I could think about was getting back to my little room above the west porch of the inn. It was not a fancy room. The ceiling slanted. The radiator knocked all night. The window stuck every winter. But it was mine. Or at least I thought it was. When I turned into the gravel drive, the first thing I noticed was that the porch lights were different. My grandmother had always kept warm yellow bulbs along the front of Rose Hill Inn. That night, they had been replaced with cold white lights that made the snow look blue. Then I saw the trash bags. 3 black contractor bags sat outside the rear service door, half buried in fresh snow. One had split open at the side. My sweaters, textbooks, and old notebooks spilled onto the ground. A framed photo of me and my grandmother Rosemary lay face down in the slush. I got out of the car slowly, already knowing something had changed before anyone said a word. I typed the old code into the keypad beside the service door. Red light. Error. I tried again. Error. I knocked. The door opened just wide enough for my mother's face to appear. Carolyn Bennett was wearing a cream cashmere sweater, pearl earrings, and the expression of a woman inconvenienced by bad weather. "Nora," she said, as if I had arrived at the wrong time for tea. "You should have called first." I looked down at the bags. "Why is my stuff outside?" Behind her, Victor Harlan appeared, holding a glass of bourbon. Victor was my stepfather, though he had never earned anything close to that title. He had a businessman's haircut, a salesman's smile, and the hollow confidence of a man who spent other people's money like proof of his own success. "We had to make some adjustments," he said. "Don't start a scene." I looked past them, through the hallway, and saw the door to my room standing wide open. The patchwork quilt my grandmother made was gone. My desk was gone. My bookshelves were gone. In their place were ring lights, white silk backdrops, boxes of artificial flowers, a dress rack, and a glowing sign that said, "Sienna Bridal." My stepsister, Sienna, stood in the middle of it all, wearing an oversized white sweater, filming herself with her phone. She saw me in the doorway and smiled like I was part of the decor. "It's just a room, Nora," she called. "Don't be dramatic," my mother sighed. "Sienna needs the space. Her bridal lifestyle channel is growing, and the West Room has the best light. You're away at school most of the time anyway." "It's Christmas Eve," I said. "Where am I supposed to sleep?" Victor took a slow sip from his glass. "You're 19. You're an adult. Figure it out." My mother did not correct him. She did not step aside. She did not ask if I had enough gas to drive back through the snow. She only folded her arms and said, "You have always been independent, Nora. This is a good time to prove it." I stood there with snow melting into my shoes, staring at the woman who gave birth to me, waiting for some crack in her face, some sign that this was temporary, some hint that she still saw me as her daughter. Nothing came. She shut the door. The new lock clicked. It was a small sound, but it split my life cleanly into before and after. I stood outside for maybe 30 seconds. Then I turned to the torn bag in the snow and started gathering what I could. At the bottom, wrapped in an old scarf, I found a small brass bell. It had once sat on the front desk of Rose Hill Inn. My grandmother Rosemary had given it to me when I was 10. She used to let me ring it when guests arrived, and one afternoon she had placed it in my hands and said, "One day, when this bell rings, people will know who runs this place." My mother had thrown it into a trash bag with my socks. I wiped the snow from the brass with my sleeve, put it in my coat pocket, loaded the bags into my trunk, and drove away. I ended up behind an old bus station in Boone, parked beneath a flickering security light that hummed like an angry insect. The heater in my Honda worked for 20 minutes at a time before the engine temperature dropped too low, so I kept waking up, turning the key, warming my hands, then shutting it off to save gas. I had $58 in my checking account. My phone battery was at 12%. My entire life was in 3 wet trash bags. Not one message came from my mother. Not one. At 5:40 inches the morning, with the sky still black and snow piling against my windshield, I called the only person I had left. My grandfather, Samuel, answered on the second ring. His voice was rough from sleep, but when I said his name, he became completely alert. "Where are you?" he asked. I told him. I told him about the bags, the changed code, Sienna's lights in my room, Victor telling me to figure it out. I expected anger. I expected cursing. I expected him to say he was coming with his shotgun and his truck. Instead, he went quiet. That silence scared me more than shouting would have. Finally, he said, "Nora, listen to me carefully. Rose Hill Inn is not your mother's inn." I remember sitting up so fast my shoulder hit the car door. "What do you mean?" Samuel took a breath. "Your grandmother never trusted Caroline with that property. She loved your mother, but she knew what she was. She saw Victor circling. Before Rosemary died, she placed Rose Hill Inn into an irrevocable trust. Caroline was allowed to operate it, but only under conditions." My fingers tightened around the phone. "What conditions?" "She had to maintain a legal residence for you until you finished college, and when you turn 23 and graduate, the inn transfers to you. Fully. Permanently." The snow outside my windshield blurred. For a moment, I could not understand the words. "Then why didn't you tell me?" "Because the trust is powerful, but it is not invincible if fools start swinging at it too early," he said. "If Caroline knows you understand the terms, she and Victor will spend every borrowed dollar trying to break it, delay it, or trick you into signing it away. If you quit school, if you miss the condition, if you sign the wrong document, she wins." I looked at the bus station, the empty benches, the ice on the glass doors. "So I have to stay quiet. You have to stay quiet, stay enrolled, and survive until the trust becomes enforceable." He paused. "Can you do that?" My hand went to the brass bell in my coat pocket. It was cold and solid against my palm. "I can," I said, though I had no idea how. Samuel's voice softened. "Then start by finding a place to sleep. And Nora, listen to me. Do not beg your mother. Do not warn her. Do not sign anything she puts in front of you. The truth is already written. Your job is to make it to the day it can speak. The first test came 1 week later. I was standing in the financial aid office at Appalachian State, still wearing the same coat from Christmas Eve, when I received an email saying my spring tuition balance had not been paid. $14,600. If it was not resolved in 9 days, my enrollment would be canceled. I called my mother from a hallway that smelled like floor cleaner and panic. She answered like we had spoken yesterday. Nora, this really isn't a good time. I asked about the tuition. She sighed, as though I had brought up something embarrassing. We had to redirect some funds. Redirect them where? There was a pause. Then she said, Sienna has opportunities right now. Real opportunities. We hired a wedding planner to help her build her brand. Victor found a videographer. There are deposits, advertising costs, consulting fees. These things require investment. Later I learned the total was $27,500. My tuition money had been turned into ring lights, floral mock-ups, sponsored bridal shoots, and Sienna's fantasy of becoming a wedding influencer. Mom, I said, if I don't pay this, I lose my classes. You're smart, she said. You can find a loan. Without a cosigner? Don't use that tone with me. Sienna needs support right now. You have always been the resilient one. That was when I understood the role she had assigned me. I was not the daughter who needed protection. I was the one who could be sacrificed because I had survived before. I ended the call without saying goodbye. Then I walked to the Student Employment Board and took every number I could tear from it. By the end of that week, I had a place to live and 3 jobs. My new home was a room behind an old bus station in Boone. $420 a month. It had thin walls, a stained ceiling, and a window that looked out over parked buses idling in the cold. The radiator clanged at random hours, and the hallway smelled like diesel, burnt coffee, and wet carpet. I kept my food in a plastic bin under the bed because the shared kitchen had mice. Every morning at 4:20, my alarm went off. By 5, I was at a diner, cracking eggs, wiping counters, and carrying trays for commuters who never looked at my face. At 9:30, I ran to class. In the afternoon, I worked as a research assistant in the hospitality management department. At night, I checked in guests at a roadside motel where truckers argued about rates and families complained about towels. I slept 4 hours if I was lucky. I learned to stretch 1 loaf of bread across a week. I learned which vending machines gave 2 items if you hit the buttons just right. I learned that exhaustion can become a kind of weather inside your body. But something else happened too. Every job taught me what my mother did not realize I was learning. At the diner, I learned supply costs. At the hospitality department, I learned property operations. At the motel, I learned contracts, deposits, cancellations, event liability, and how quickly a confident liar collapses when asked for paperwork. One night, while balancing a ledger for the motel manager, I remembered my grandmother behind the front desk of Rose Hill Inn, tapping a pencil against a reservation book. People smile at the front desk, sweetheart, she had told me, but the truth is always in the ledger. I wrote that line on a sticky note and taped it above my desk. It became my private prayer. I did not need my mother to admit what she had done. I needed documents. I needed grades. I needed time. Caroline watched me through fake social media accounts. I knew because every time I posted something tired or gray, someone in the family repeated it back to me. So I gave them what they wanted. I posted one photo from the motel lobby at 2. 0 inches the morning, fluorescent lights making my skin look pale, my name tag crooked, my eyes hollow from lack of sleep. The caption said, "Still here? Still trying." Within an hour, Aunt Marjorie messaged me. Maybe your mother was right. Maybe college is too much for you. Another cousin wrote, "Stop punishing everyone and go home. Sienna deserves happiness." I did not answer. I let them believe I was breaking. I needed Caroline comfortable. Comfortable people make careless mistakes. And Victor made the biggest one. He wanted to turn Rose Hill Inn into a luxury wedding estate. He hosted tastings, invited local investors, talked about glass pavilions and garden expansions, and referred to the inn as our family asset. Then he and Caroline went to the bank to borrow against it. They expected applause. Instead, a loan officer pulled the records and explained that Caroline did not own Rose Hill Inn. Victor owned nothing. The property was held in trust. Caroline had a conditional operational right, and that right was tied to me. When Samuel told me about the bank visit, I was standing in the motel supply closet holding a stack of towels. She was angry, he said. Not scared. Angry. She told the banker it was a technicality and that you would sign whatever needed to be signed. I closed my eyes. I knew she would come. Samuel said, "Remember what I told you. Don't sign anything," I replied. "Not even a birthday card if she hands me one." Caroline arrived on campus 2 weeks later wearing a camel coat, leather gloves, and an expression of wounded motherhood so polished it could have fooled a courtroom. She found me in a quiet corner of the library, surrounded by hospitality law notes. "Nora," she whispered, as if we were in a hospital. "Look at you. You look exhausted." She reached for my hand. I moved it away. She pretended not to notice. "I know things have been difficult," she said, "but I'm your mother. I want to fix this." From her bag, she pulled a folder. "These are family scholarship papers. If you sign them, we can restructure some accounts and get your tuition settled." She placed a pen on top of the stack. A younger version of me would have signed just to make her proud. A lonelier version of me might have signed for the promise of a warm bed. But the version sitting there had slept behind a bus station and read contracts under motel lights. I opened the folder. The first pages looked harmless. Tax language, family support forms, scholarship terminology. Caroline kept glancing at the clock. "The notary closes at 4, she said. "We should hurry." I turned to the final appendix. There, in dense legal text, was the truth. By signing, I would relinquish all beneficiary interest in the Rosemary Bennett Trust, transfer all future rights in Rose Hill Inn to Caroline Bennett, acknowledge that I acted voluntarily, and waive the right to challenge the transfer later. It was theft dressed as tuition help. I read the paragraph twice, then pushed the folder back. "I'm not signing away Rose Hill Inn, Caroline." The change in her face was instant. The soft mother vanished. Her jaw tightened. Her eyes went cold. "How dare you call me that?" "It's your name." Her voice dropped. "You selfish little girl. Sienna needs this. This inn is her future." "No," I said. "It was Grandma Rosemary's work, and she knew exactly who to protect it from." Caroline stood so quickly her chair scraped across the library floor. "You will regret this." "I already regret believing you came here as my mother." She left without the folder. I scanned every page before I slept that night. The smear campaign began 3 days later. Caroline posted a long, tearful statement online about the pain of watching a daughter lose herself. She claimed I had dropped out, stolen money from inn accounts, become unstable, and tried to extort the family out of jealousy towards Sienna. She said she and Victor had made the heartbreaking decision to cut me off for everyone's safety. Within hours, relatives who had not asked if I survived Christmas Eve found time to condemn me. "You broke your mother's heart. Sienna deserves happiness. Get help. Don't come to family events anymore." Then Aunt Marjorie sent the message that finally sealed something inside me. "You are no longer part of this family." I stared at that sentence for a long time in my little room behind the bus station. My first instinct was to fight. I wanted to post the documents. I wanted to show screenshots, bank notices, the forged transfer papers, everything. But if I fought publicly, Caroline would turn my anger into proof of instability. If I revealed the trust too early, Victor would find a lawyer hungry enough to bury me in delays. So I did nothing. I blocked them one by one. Aunt Marjorie, cousins, Victor, Sienna, Caroline. Block, block, block. Then I opened my laptop and finished a paper on risk exposure in boutique hospitality properties. Silence was not surrender. Silence was strategy. That winter, Samuel's health began to fail. He called me to Charlotte to meet Helena Ward, the attorney who had drafted my grandmother's trust. Helena was in her 60s, with silver hair pinned low and a voice sharp enough to cut rope. She did not waste time comforting me. She opened a red leather folder and said, "When people steal with paperwork, you defeat them with better paperwork." For the next 2 hours, she explained the endgame. If I graduated before my 23rd birthday, Caroline's operational right ended. Rose Hill Inn transferred to me. Victor and Sienna had no independent claim. Any money they spent without trust approval was their risk, not mine. Helena had already prepared the ownership transfer, the notice terminating Caroline's authority, a 21-day order to vacate, preservation letters warning against property damage, and arrangements for civil officers to be present when served. Samuel sat beside me, pale but steady. "Your grandmother built this for you," he said. "Not because she wanted revenge, because she knew love without protection is just a wish." Helena slid the folder across the desk. My name was embossed on the front, Nora Rosemary Bennett. I ran my fingers over the letters and felt something shift. For years I had been surviving in borrowed rooms and fluorescent light. Now I had a map, a legal one, a real one. Spring came. Then another year. I kept working, kept studying, kept letting Caroline believe her own lies. Meanwhile, Sienna's wedding plans grew absurd. She ordered a custom gown, imported flowers, drone videography, a live quartet, a luxury tasting menu, and a champagne tower tall enough to make Victor brag about it at every investor dinner. Payments started failing. Vendors started calling. Then Caroline found out I had received a job offer in Charlotte with a hospitality asset consulting firm. $104,000 a year, plus a $21,000 signing bonus. She called me from an unknown number. I answered because by then I was almost curious. "Nora," she said, breathless. "Sienna is in trouble. No hello. No apology. Just need." She explained that wedding debts and business advances had piled up. They needed $62,000 to stop vendors from suing and keep the wedding from collapsing. A private lender would approve the money if I co-signed because I had future income. "You have a future now," Caroline said. "Sienna needs one." I almost laughed. Instead, I let the silence stretch. Then I said, "On Christmas Eve, you told me to figure it out. That was years ago. You took my room, my tuition, my name, and then you tried to take the inn. We were under pressure." "So was I." Her voice cracked into anger. "She is your sister. She is your daughter," I said, "and she can figure it out." Then I ended the call. My hand did not shake. That was when I knew I had stopped waiting for Caroline to become someone else. I graduated in May, with degrees in hospitality, management, and finance, highest honors in my concentration. No one from my family attended. There was an empty row behind me, where people with my last name should have been, but I did not look back at it. I walked across the stage for the girl who slept in a freezing car. I walked for the version of me who counted coins for soup. I walked for Rosemary and Samuel. 2 weeks before Sienna's wedding, Samuel died in his sleep. Caroline did not come to the funeral. Helena told me she had called, and Caroline said traveling was impossible because the family was overwhelmed with wedding obligations. I stood by Samuel's grave with the brass bell in my pocket and understood that grief does not always make noise. Sometimes, it simply removes the last reason you had, to soften the truth. After the service, Helena handed me the final recorded documents. Rose Hill Inn was mine, fully, legally, permanently. "They don't know?" I asked. Helena's mouth tightened. "Your mother still believes Samuel's death strengthens her position." I looked down at the papers, then let her enjoy the wedding. Which brings us back to tonight, September 2024. Rose Hill Inn, glowing like a fairy tale built on bad debt. Sienna's wedding guests fill the garden, laughing beneath white lanterns. Caroline moves through them like royalty, accepting compliments on flowers she cannot afford. Victor stands near the bar, telling two investors about expansion plans that will never break ground. I step through the gate, just as Daniel Price, the event manager, approaches Victor with a tablet. "Mr. Harlan," he says, not quietly enough, "the final payment of $38,000 has not cleared." Victor gives a tight smile. "Run the card again." Daniel does. Declined. Victor produces another card. Declined. The string quartet keeps playing, but conversations nearby begin to die. Guests turn their heads. Victor's face reddens. "It's a bank error." Daniel's voice hardens. "Sir, we cannot continue service without payment. That is my cue." I walk across the garden. My heels click against the stone path, steady and clear. Aunt Marjorie sees me first. Her champagne glass freezes halfway to her lips. Then others turn. They do not see the unstable dropout Caroline described. They see an ivory suit, a leather briefcase, and a woman who is not asking permission to enter. Sienna spots me from beneath the floral arch. Her smile falters. Caroline turns last. For 1 second, pure confusion crosses her face. Then rage covers it. "What are you doing here?" she hisses. "Leaving would be wise," I say. "This is private property." "Exactly," she snaps. "Our private property." Daniel still stands there, unpaid and uncomfortable. I turn to him, remove my card, and place it in his hand. "Run this. Pay your staff. Add 20% for the trouble." He looks at me carefully. "And who should I list as the payer?" I let my eyes move from Sienna to Victor to Caroline, then to the guests now listening in complete silence. The owner of Rose Hill Inn. The garden goes still. Even the quartet stops. Caroline laughs once, sharp and ugly. "This is a sick stunt." I set my briefcase on the guestbook table and open it. The clasps snap like small gunshots. "No," I say. "The stunt was pretending you owned something Grandma Rosemary protected from you years ago." I pull out the deed, the trust certification, and the termination notice. Helena has taught me to speak slowly when the truth is heavy. Rosemary Bennett placed Rose Hill Inn into an irrevocable trust. Caroline was granted temporary operational authority, conditional on maintaining my residence and supporting my education until I graduated. She violated the spirit of that condition when she threw me out on Christmas Eve, but the transfer clause activated when I turned 23 and completed my degree. This morning, the property transferred to me. Aunt Marjorie whispers, "Caroline?" My mother ignores her. "You ungrateful child. We raised you. You locked me out in the snow." Because Sienna needed. She stops herself too late. The guests hear it. I pull out the 21-day order and place it on the table. A breeze lifts the corner of the paper. I reach into my pocket, take out the small brass bell, and set it on top. Then, I tap it once. Keng. The sound is small, bright, and absolute. It travels through the garden like a verdict. My grandmother told me one day this bell would tell people who runs this place. I say. That day is today. Then I tell them everything. Not loudly, not dramatically, just clearly. I tell them about the Christmas Eve trash bags, the changed code, the room given to Sienna for bridal content, the $14,600 tuition bill my mother refused to pay because she spent $27,500 building Sienna's brand. The fake scholarship papers that were actually a transfer of my inheritance, the public lie that I had stolen money and lost my mind, the relatives who believed it because it was easier than asking me one question. Aunt Marjorie steps forward, face pale. "Nora, we didn't know." I look at her, and for the first time, I feel no need to soften anything. "You didn't want to know." Victor lunges into the space between us, desperate to reclaim authority. "You can't just walk in with papers and take a business. I put money into this place. I'll sue you until you're broke." I almost feel sorry for him. Almost. "You invested without ownership, without authorization, and without reading the trust. That is not my liability. You have no deed, no lease, and no operating right. If you damage one fixture, strip one appliance, or remove one item belonging to the property, I will pursue damages personally. His mouth opens, but no words come. Then the gate opens again. Helena Ward enters in a black suit, followed by 2 civil officers. She walks directly to Caroline and hands her the official notice. Caroline Bennett, your authority to operate Rose Hill Inn has been terminated. You have 21 days to vacate and surrender all keys, codes, vendor contracts, and financial records relating to this property. Sienna stands in her wedding gown, veil trembling in the mountain air. Victor looks at the investors, but they are already moving toward the exit. Caroline stares at the paper as if hatred alone might burn through it. The wedding does not end with a kiss. It ends with vendors packing up flowers, guests whispering into phones, and my mother realizing that the daughter she threw away has become the one person she cannot command. The next 21 days are quieter than I expected. Victor files an emergency petition claiming business interest in the property. Helena has it dismissed. Caroline sends long messages from new numbers, alternating between threats, sobs, and memories she suddenly wants to polish into tenderness. I do not answer. Sienna posts one video saying her special day was ruined by family betrayal. The comments do not go the way she expects. Someone leaks the clip of Daniel announcing the declined payment. Someone else posts a copy of the public property transfer. Her bridal brand collapses under the weight of its own fake foundation. By day 19, Victor leaves Caroline to protect what little money he has left. By day 21, Rose Hill Inn is empty. I return with Helena and a locksmith. The garden is littered with dead petals. The bridal arch has been stripped down to bare metal. Inside, Sienna's content room is abandoned, wires hanging from the wall, makeup lights gone, holes left where shelves had been torn out. In the hallway, I stop before the rear service door. The keypad Caroline installed after locking me out is still there. The locksmith removes it. The plastic casing falls into his toolbox with a dull clack. He installs a brass lock, solid and simple. Then he hands me the key. I slide it in and turn. Click. It is the cleanest sound I have ever heard. Not revenge, not even victory, boundary. I stand there for a moment, remembering snow in my shoes, $58 in my account, and my mother's voice saying, "Figure it out." I did. I do not keep Rose Hill Inn. Some people expect me to. They think justice means sitting on the porch and ruling the place like a queen. But buildings remember. Hallways hold echoes. Rooms keep the shape of what happened inside them. I sell it for $1.9 million to a hospitality group that plans to restore the original structure and remove every trace of Victor's cheap luxury fantasies. With the money, I pay off every debt, buy an apartment in Charlotte, invest the rest, and create the Rosemary Fund for students whose families use money as a leash. On my first morning in that apartment, I place the brass bell on my desk. It has been polished and mounted on a small wooden base. Outside my window, Charlotte rises in glass and sunlight. No one is knocking. No one is shouting my name. No one is telling me I am selfish for surviving. For years, I thought peace would come when my mother finally admitted what she did. But peace did not come from her apology. It came from no longer needing one. Family is not a license to abandon you, smear you, use you, then demand your rescue when their favorite child runs out of road. Forgiveness is not handing the key back to someone who left you freezing outside. Sometimes forgiveness is setting down the hope that they will change, locking the door from the inside, and building a life so solid their absence cannot shake it. If you have ever been the one they underestimated, the one they called dramatic, jealous, difficult, or broken, remember this: silence can be strategy, survival can be preparation, and the people who throw you out may one day discover they were standing in a place that belonged to you all along. Leave 333 inches the comments if you are ready to stop begging for a seat at a table that never deserved you. And subscribe for more stories about the moment the forgotten one finally turns the key.